Person.
Well. I never thought that I would have to make this video only 2 rounds into the 2025 season. Yep, here we are. It's safe to say that Lawson's time in the Red Bull has been abysmal, to say the least. After so much promise after a surprising promotion from RB against the judgment of literally everyone, it looks like his hype F1 car's got a puncture, broken front wing, 10-second stop-go penalty and a €50,000 fine before the 5 red lights have even gone out. But how did we get to this point? Well, in this video, we will analyse Lawson's F1 career to date from the moment he entered an F1 car to the present day, and try to figure out what has gone so wrong, his future in F1, and what will happen to the second Red Bull seat in general, in this emergency driver review. As always, if you like content like this, feel free to like and subscribe. It's only 2 buttons and it really helps the algorithm to deliver more of my content to more people. Hey guys, I'm TMWF1, and let's have an emergency meeting on Liam Lawson. This is the moment that would change the trajectory of Lawson's career. A seemingly small, unproblematic crash in FP2 for Daniel Ricciardo, but it turned out that Ricciardo had broken his wrist as he did not let go of the steering wheel. At this point, Lawson was competing in the Super Formula Championship in Japan, fighting for the title. Luckily for him, he was in attendance at the Dutch Grand Prix as part of his reserve driver duties for AlphaTauri. Thus, AlphaTauri announced that Lawson was to race for the team until Ricciardo was well enough to race. Due to the surprise call-up and only 1 practice session, Lawson, unsurprisingly, qualified P20, only a second off Bottas in P19. In a pretty chaotic race to make his F1 debut in, Lawson weathered the storm, literally, to finish P13, ahead of seasoned and experienced drivers such as Russell, Magnussen and Bottas. It was announced that Ricciardo would not be fully healed until at least Qatar, and that until then Lawson would remain in F1. At the Italian Grand Prix, Lawson would qualify P12 in his first real qualifying test, only 2 tenths and 1 place behind his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who will be a recurring theme in this video. He had a decent race to finish P11, only 6 seconds behind Bottas in P10. However, the real surprise was when he came to Singapore, which happened to be Lawson's favourite track. First and foremost, Lawson outqualified his teammate Tsunoda after he failed to set a Q2 time. But what's more, Q2 brought an even bigger surprise.
Tsunoda's on a decent lap. Oh, it looks like he's backed out of it, has he? In the final sector. How about Liam Lawson? Can Liam Lawson make it through? He can!
Somehow, in just his 3rd race, Liam Lawson managed to outqualify and knock out 2-time world champion Max Verstappen in Q2, who was on a 10-race win streak. He qualified P10, the highest qualifying Red Bull driver, as Perez was in 13th. After a long fight with Alex Albon, Lawson finished P9, partly thanks to Russell doing Russell things on the last lap. Sainz was leading. He would score his first points in F1, and this result meant that he would finish ahead of Nick De Vries in the standings after only 3 races. He would miss out on back-to-back Q3 appearances in Japan, but would finish ahead of his teammate Tsunoda in P11. This showed a lot of promise, as Lawson was pretty much immediately as quick as Tsunoda despite having way less experience in F1. His final race in Qatar was not so great, as he would qualify 18th, crash in the sprint, and finish last in the main race. Ricciardo would return for the USA Grand Prix, ending Lawson's time in the AlphaTauri, but he was expected to return at some point in the near future. That future was a lot closer than we thought. Lawson's next appearance would be once again a result of Daniel Ricciardo. Unfortunately for the Aussie, this replacement would be permanent. In 2024, save for a great sprint race at the Miami Grand Prix, the Australian's performances have been pretty bad, especially as he was fighting for the Red Bull seat in 2024, as Perez had done, pre-race things. It all came to a head in Singapore. Ricciardo finished P18 with the fastest lap, and that ended his F1 career, unless he somehow comes back with Cadillac, but even I doubt that will happen. Lawson, who had fallen back into his previous role of reserve driver after coming P2 in the Super Formula Championship in 2023, had been called up, this time permanently. The aim of his time in the seat was to prove to Red Bull that he was the driver that they needed. He would compete with Tsunoda for the second Red Bull seat, for real this time. His first race back was at the USA Grand Prix in Austin, where Lawson could only qualify P19, as he'd never raced at the track before. He was able to undercut Tsunoda in the pits, and eventually finish P9, an impressive fight back making up 10 places to beat his teammate and score points on his return. He would follow this up by qualifying P12 at Mexico, out-qualifying Sergio Perez, who couldn't escape Q1. In the race he would be locked in battle with the Red Bull, colliding a fair amount of times, which resulted in a damaged side pod for Perez in his home race. Lawson would finish 16th after flipping off the Red Bull driver, which wasn't the best look. This is where his infamous "I'm not here to make friends" quote came from, which is a pretty bold statement to make having only done 7 races in F1 thus far. Lawson would bounce back in Sao Paulo, qualifying a career best P5, an amazing result. The only issue, Tsunoda qualified P3. Nevertheless, it was still a great show of pace and proved that he could hang with Tsunoda with less experience. Despite being spun by Piastri, he will once again perform in wet conditions to finish P9, a good recovery from being spun, albeit behind his teammate. Unfortunately, that would be the last time he would score points in 2024. He would once again have a horrible Qatar Grand Prix, failing to finish the sprint and picking up a 10-second penalty that would leave him P13. He would qualify 14th and finish 16th at Las Vegas due to a failed one-stop strategy, and he retired from the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix after qualifying P12. Throughout the 2024 season, Lawson would usually qualify and finish behind his teammate Tsunoda, but he wasn't miles off and would definitely improve in the future. During the winter break, it was announced, to the surprise of absolutely no one, that Sergio Perez was fired at Red Bull. The main intrigue was the question of who would replace him. Many people, myself included, speculated that Tsunoda would replace Checo and Lawson would stay at RB to develop, and if his performance is picked up while Tsunoda's dropped, he would claim a Red Bull drive by 2026. This, in my opinion, was the right thing to do, as Tsunoda has far more experience in F1 and would be in a better position to help Red Bull from a constructor's view as he carried RB on his back for the past 2 years. However, Red Bull didn't see it that way. Whether their eyes were swayed from the winter test that Red Bull did in late 2024, or the fact that Honda was ending their partnership with Red Bull at the end of 2025 clouded their vision, I don't know. All we knew that was in January of 2025, Liam Lawson was announced to be a Red Bull driver for the 2025 season. Quite frankly, when Liam Lawson was announced to be a Red Bull driver, there was an outcry from a larger number of fans, namely Yuki fans and also salty Checo fans. Some called for the decision to be reversed, and others pointed out that Yuki had beaten him last year and this was unfair. Red Bull remained steadfast on why Lawson was chosen, and that was for evaluation, and yet they believed that Lawson had a higher ceiling and more potential than Tsunoda. Their evidence for this claim was the fact that Lawson was more or less on par with Yuki after only a few races, and they could develop him further at a top team. Initially I thought that this was an injustice, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought that whilst I still thought it was a wrong decision, I understand why a team like Red Bull, who produced people like Verstappen, Vettel, Ricciardo and Sainz, would take the challenge, the ultimate gamble to turn their drivers into rapid machines. It's in the Red Bull DNA.
It's the history of the Tottenham.
I also acknowledge that this meant that copious amounts of pressure and scrutiny would be on Lawson's shoulders, similar to the amount of pressure on Mercedes driver and 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli's shoulders. Maybe even more considering that Toto actually likes his drivers. Either way, this would be a make or break moment for the new Red Bull driver. He would need to be quick, adapt quickly, and most importantly, be as close as possible to the force that is Max Verstappen. We rolled around to the Australian Grand Prix full of expectations and... well, that definitely could have gone better. But hey, it's the first race of the season, one that saw 6 people crash out in the rain including Alonso. Anyone could make mistakes like Hadjar or Duhan or Kimi Antonelli. I see. But hey, it doesn't matter that you made the worst debut for a top team in recent memory, you just have to perform as you go along. Look, the next race is in China, with 0 chance of rain. Surely this would be the opportunity to show your role place and make a, nice little, Q3 appearance, right? Right? Yeah, I can't lie. It's so over. It is so over. Back-to-back Q1 eliminations with being dead last in both qualifying sessions in China, crashing out in the rain at Australia and then failing to score points in China despite 3 disqualifications and a DF is egregious work. The only reason he isn't dead last in the standing is because Alonso has failed to finish the race twice. I don't understand how he can struggle so much. As we all know, the Red Bull is a difficult car to handle, yes, but to the extent that he's dead last every race in every qualifying session, I really don't understand how it can get that bad. Due to these performances, there have been rumours that Lawson is to be replaced by Tsunoda in the swap as early as the Japanese Grand Prix, and whilst yes, he has been bad, and yes, he doesn't have the luxury of being given time to settle in, I believe that they shouldn't replace him until at least after Bahrain. Reason being is that the first 2 tracks that were tracks that Lawson had never raced at, and the next 2 he's raced there multiple times, with Japan being in F1 and Super Formula, and Bahrain in F3 and F2. So this would be an opportunity to right the wrongs of the first 2 races. Even worse is the speculation that Red Bull are trying to employ Franco Colapinto from Alpine, as he performed well in Williams, which means Lawson would be out of F1 entirely. This is, to say the least, extremely stupid, considering that it's Red Bull's own fault that they're in this position, and they would effectively end Lawson's F1 career for a decision that they chose to make. As I said, Yuki should have been in that Red Bull from the moment 2025 began, yet he is stuck at RB, qualifying P5 and P6 in most sessions. So my verdict is this: Lawson does deserve a seat, just not at Red Bull. Give him a chance to redeem himself, sure, give him the next 2 or 3 races to see if he can improve on tracks that he himself knows how to drive on. If nothing changes, then swap the 2 drivers, like Red Bull have done so many times, so he can find his feet again. Kicking out a driver 2 races in because you put him in a top team with only 7 races of experience against Max Verstappen is why Red Bull have such a bad reputation in terms of junior drivers. Not everyone is Antonelli, not everyone can perform straight away with no experience. And Red Bull need to accept that instead of using their drivers as a scapegoat. Me personally, I would love to see Yuki in that seat to observe if he would struggle in a similar way to Lawson, considering that Tsunoda's in the form of his life at the moment. If he does, then we have inherent proof that there is something wrong with the Red Bull seat or car in general, whether it was being tailored to Max's driver's style or just a dead end in terms of its design. Either way, to save his career, Lawson needs to have a generational performance at the Japanese Grand Prix or he is finished, whether deserved or not. Yeah guys, whilst I was editing the video, multiple reports suggested that Red Bull have decided to make the decision to replace Lawson immediately, swapping the cars. How do I feel about that? Well, I basically think that they made the right decision, but I feel like they should have at least just given Lawson until like Bahrain to find his feet. That just seems a bit harsh on their part. But this is F1, time is not a luxury and that can lead to silly decisions. But hey, at least we can see if the Red Bull second seat is actually cursed or not, so excited to see that. That's my take on the whole situation. What's yours? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Liam, if you ever end up watching this, my condolences, have a wonderful day, and goodbye.